Welcome. Today we peel back the layers of New York. This sculpture, a facade masking ancient secrets, and the buildings, symbols of hidden power. Now let's investigate. The facades of New York are layered with deep symbolism. Let's peel back these layers to uncover the hidden truths.
The unfathomable Thomas Farrell. Yeah, no, you are a comedian working in New York, and I'm in Taiwan. Just messing around. But yeah, so you have been a comedian for quite a while, is that right?
Yeah, about 8 years.
8 years,
Eight,
okay.
yeah, I got sober and started doing comedy a couple of weeks later. Just had all this time on
Wow.
my hand.
You have have you ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Dangerfield?
Yes, yes, yes. One of my favorites.
You sound just like him. He did a lot of voiceovers in Hollywood, so his voice is very it's very comforting for me. Your
It's
voice, yeah. Roger
the highest.
Dangerfield. Is it Dangerfield or Dangerfield? Yeah.
Dangerfield, Rodney Dangerfield.
Dangerfield. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you just your voice was straight away. I was like, when I first heard you, I thought, what this is an amazing voice to do this work you're doing. Like, yeah. So you've got to 100,000 followers on Facebook. That's a big deal. So yeah.
Thank you. TikTok also. I can't explain it,
Yeah.
Charles. I can't explain it.
It's truth. It's truth. Truth is magnetic. Have you heard that theory that people are drawn to it because it's got truth to what
Yeah.
you're saying? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you've been chosen by God to do this higher conscious activity to wake people up. Have you kind of predicted what might happen later on? How the message now looks like to most people, it's just a guy exploring a city, talking about buildings in a new way. Yeah, and now people maybe are looking at the buildings in a new way. So they're looking at their whole world in a new way. And then next will probably they'll be looking at other things in a new way, right? Because there's a thing about this Tartaria business. It's addictive, right? And people have tried to destroy it in different ways. They try to, belittle people who are doing it. And then try to say that, oh, this empire didn't exist. It was just a like a label or a name card for a certain expanse of land that we didn't know anything about. But then now we've started to find links to Tartaria in Iran, in Russia, in the Chimera, and China now. Of course, now we realize that Grand Tartary was actually China, and the Great Wall of China was the Great Wall of Tartary. All of the arrow slits and all of the foundations are built to support a wall to keep out these fishing villages, which became China, and then China obviously invaded with the help of European armaments, and a few catastrophes later, it's been completely removed now, Tartaria. Have you what is like the most exciting building where you've seen the most crazy symbolism?
Oh man, there's so many.
So
But
many, yeah.
when we touched on about like the Woolworth building, like how
Yeah,
they say, I was looking for gargoyles, like that's what I went there for, as I remembered as a kid. And when I
yeah,
stumbled across it, I was making jokes. I'm like, oh, what is that? Biggie? Is that the Statue of Liberty? Not realizing what I was filming, and then
right.
from doing this, I'm learning, and the comment section is very helpful, you know, and like they're like, oh, these are the architects and the workers. It didn't look like workers from the 1912, and it came out. It looks like Native people and what looks like Black people who, and it seems like they were here already. You know what I mean? Like, which is
Yeah.
you know, as someone new to this, and that was one of my beginning videos. That's when the real learning started to begin. I feel, you know, for me, the Woolworth building.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I have done quite a lot of posts on different specific buildings, but if you actually live there, you have the ability to realize that, well, where there's usually one, then there's going to be many, and you can kind of start to build almost your own timeline as to kind of what type of construction was happening when. But in my research, I've realized that if there are people, because in a big city like New York, you're not going to get a lot of sort of a removal of history. I mean, nobody's walking around knocking the noses off every pharaoh, right? Whereas in Egypt that was happening, and I think that happened partly to hide the ethnicity of the kings of that area, but also it happened because people were trying to remove the history of a place. Whereas in a big city where people are still living, because it hasn't turned into desert. Like, for example, Greenland used to be green, now it's ice. Yeah. So America, for whatever reason, is not ice and it's not desert, right? So you don't have the cursed land. Now, a curse is something that comes from a a higher entity or maybe a highly evolved human that becomes almost invisible, a godlike entity, right? So so on the symbolism, you'll get a lot of winged creatures like guardian angels, gargoyles, which are obviously trying to scare off other evil spirits. Yeah. So just because something looks evil doesn't mean it's evil. Just because something looks like an angel doesn't mean it's a good entity either. Yeah. So so the symbolism I think is the key, and we have to view that as a language all of its own. So if the person looks black, if he has, as you said earlier, because we had a chat before this, that if the cornrows are there, then we know that that is a swarthy Native American black man, and he was put onto that building not at the time when we are told the building was constructed, because that would have been impossible due to the intense racism in America in the 1930s and 20s when we have almost like a nationwide segregation movement, right? Where this kind of fear of the the Native American sorry, not the Native American, the African slave that was brought over to work on the plantations. Now we may find out that that's not true, that wasn't actually 300 years at all, that was, and that most of those people have just been brainwashed into believing that they are from Africa when actually this is their native land. And buildings like the Woolworth building are like almost a key to that, to understanding that world, the real world, the Amarocco America or the Tamari America, right? And I think that's why people don't want you to do it. Or at least you may have experienced some people trying to stop you doing it or trying to belittle you for doing it. Because first of all, they attack you. If that doesn't work, then they try to discredit you. If that doesn't work, because by the time they've finished attacking you, it's usually too late. You already understand what you're looking at and you understand the symbolism and you've connected with other people that have been doing this, right? And and I think then this awakening begins because it's like a snowball effect, you know. Yeah,
And you know, it's everywhere too. Like the building you were speaking of, we were speaking of before, was the New Jersey Bell in Newark, New Jersey, which is
yeah,
such a time capsule. Newark, New Jersey was awesome, but like even
yeah, yeah, yeah.
stumbled upon Grant's tomb. They had this. They're like, oh, it's from the Civil War, but it looks like
Yeah.
Roman guys with like I don't know, like naked African people on horses. It was it's a telling thing, you know what I mean? I love stumbling across so many things. Like I legit, there's some places I go, but like a high percentage is just me stumbling
Yeah.
across these buildings, and they're everywhere in New York.
Where I found actually very old cathedrals that, in my opinion, it's like without a shadow of a doubt, those cathedrals were like Gothic architecture, you know. And have you heard of there's one in New York called St. Patrick's Cathedral,
Yes.
and that is impossible, I think, to build today. So I don't, and I think it would have been impossible in the 1500s. I think that's got to go. You're going back to like the same period of time when those buildings were built in Europe. That's what I'm suspicious about. So I don't know if you've been there, but so, like some of the buildings you think are like Rococo or Revival, but they don't look like that. They look like the real deal, and they've probably just been bleached. Like the facade has been bleached to make them look newer or modern. Yeah. And I think the narratives are also going to be wrong. Like, because everything has to have happened by the 1800s. Is that correct? It couldn't have happened before then because there was no United States. Yeah. So this also leads me on to who were the presidents back then? You know, because if those buildings existed back then, or were constructed back then, who were the actual presidents? Because they are not on there, you see. And you would have expected them to be on there. But instead we have swarthy people, a Moroccan, African-looking people. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and the more traditional Native American narrative, I think, still stands. Like maybe Plains Indians were paler in complexion, but then you have the Moroccan and the sort of almost original Roman-looking faces. Like before Rome existed, there was the Etruscans, and they had black faces. So it kind of puts a lot of things into question, like the entire history. But you went recently to the Brooklyn Public Library, and I thought that was a fascinating building because the symbolism out there, especially the entrance, seems to cover all of what I'm talking about, every single empire, from the Creek Indians being the Greeks, from the Moors being the Romans, from maybe America being the location, Florida of the Garden of Eden, of the gopher wood tree that's described in the Bible being used to build the Noah's Ark, because that was very strong, large wooden resources that were used. So um, uh, when you went to the Brooklyn Library, do you sort of like are you able to save all of your footage? Because it must be a lot of memory. How do you keep it all safe? Like,
It's just on the iPhone. Some people ask like, "Hey, what camera are you using?" I'm like, "I just upgraded. I was using the old one in the beginning, and I was getting compliments."
yeah.
But like the St. Patrick's Cathedral was wild, like you said, and the Brooklyn Public
Mm,
Library. Besides my childhood, because I lived down Flatbush, I
mm,
worked UPS there, and I never noticed, and I delivered to the back, and it was old in my mind. And when I did Grand Army Plaza, it said 1940, and not many buildings they stick within a timeline of their lives. 1940,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fort Hamilton High School, the art museum in DC. And I'm like, why would they say 1940s for these? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and the
what is the
book,
Great Depression? Like,
but it's usually before. They never do the full. It's usually 1932. Like,
yeah,
and going to the Brooklyn Public Library in the summer when I did the Grand Army Plaza, I'm like, I don't need these people jumping down my throat saying my grandparents were alive in the 40s. Like, so
yeah,
I stood away, and then I watched Lance from Upstate and something you posted. I'm like, I went there as a kid. I delivered there. I have to run up on it again and refresh my mind. And the symbolism you speak of and the gold and even the
yeah,
Roman and Greek people on there, they're taller than everyone else. I was having a discussion with a lady out front. I'm like, because
yeah,
I'm a football fan, American football fan, and the New York
yeah.
Giants as a kid, like, oh, this is boring. I want a Dolphin. I want a Raider. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mm,
it makes sense now because I'm seeing Giants all over these buildings. You know,
yeah, yeah. No, there are some great structures. Have you ever looked into any of the stadiums, like the large, like like the Yankee Stadium and how they were constructed? Because within the timeline, I don't see how those happened. Because you don't have like, as you said, marble, mines and quarries and stuff. And then there's like other smaller towns like Washington. In Missouri, there's another Washington. There's like a few Washingtons, and they all have like very, very large sort of like Senate buildings and government, like dome churches, almost like palaces. And the numerology is it could be interesting for you to look into because you can count steps and it's always the same kind of numbers like 88, 48, 333, because those are also Roman numeral structures. And sometimes they will sort of reuse old bricks or old marble and try to build a similar building next to it to make it look like all of those structures were built at the same time for the same purpose. But if you look at it closely, you can see it's not the same quality, it's not the same craftsmanship, it's not the same symbolism. You know, they do these kind of like Corinthian columns where there's a specific angle that they're using, almost like a Fibonacci sequence, sort of golden ratio angle to everything, because that's what that empire was. And after hundreds of years of that kind of Moorish empire that I call it, um, that's the culmination of all of their achievements, all of their trading throughout the world, the setup of the Silk Road. And you start to realize that America can't be where it is on modern maps. It's got to be somewhere where Atlantis used to be, maybe surrounded by ocean as opposed to far up north where Germany used to be on the old maps. So I think what they did is they moved America further north on our maps, then made all of the pilots swear to go through those paths and not deviate from those unusual paths that they have to do. So nobody's ever really flying directly. And you could end up probably finding out that America is actually not far from Eastern Europe, if you look at the old maps. Now there are thousands of old maps now because we all have the internet, and I don't think America is an ancient. I don't think it's like a new land that was further away. And I think they did the same with Australia. I think Australia is also somewhere in Northern Europe, and then America is a large chunk of Eastern Europe, probably where Kazakhstan is on our modern maps. So that makes it easier then to understand why you have so many different like Caucasian and Moorish people there, because that was the that I mean that is connected to Greece. It's also connected to Africa. Yeah. So if you go through the Grand Canyon, you should end up in Africa. And then when you look at some newspaper articles that I've been collecting, there are refugees that go through the Grand Canyon all the time to get into the United States from Africa. And maybe there aren't those large oceans there at all anymore, or maybe they're only there at certain times of the year. That's another theory somebody told me. So I'm kind of digging deep into trying to find out where America should be on the old maps. And is it just Atlantis that didn't actually end up under the ocean? Because the only links to Atlantis that we have in modern history is through the Greeks. The because you, through like uh, the Homer's Iliad and Homer's Odyssey, right? So Homer is the one that talks about Atlantis, references from his own teacher Solon, who heard about it from someone else. So if America is actually in Eastern Europe, that would be pretty insane. Like if it is actually in Eastern Europe, it's not some expanse of land connected to Mexico. And then as you know, Mexico still belongs to Italy. They still share the same flag, the same color. That would also tie in with connecting Italy to South America. And then you start to realize, of course, they're speaking Spanish there because that's where the actual Spanish language came from in order to end up in Spain. Because you've got to go back to Spain somehow. You can't just pick up and leave and then Spanish is spoken there and Spanish is spoken here. And there was some kind of conquest that happened and they all learned Spanish. I don't think it works that way. I don't think language works that way. I don't think the human psyche, you can't even change names of streets in Germany, even after the communists came. they all went back to the original names of the streets. So they changed the Russian names back to the German names. So I don't think you can. I don't think you can just give your language to another empire and just hopefully they'll use it. So when you have Spain, Spanish being spoken in Mexico, Portuguese being spoken in Argentina, I think those land masses must be much closer than they are on our modern maps. What do you think about that?
No, that makes a lot of sense, you know. And
Yeah, yeah.
why would the Grand Canyon be off limits? You know what I mean? Like,
Right, right.
you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like, why wouldn't it be open? I don't know. Like, that's just a red flag in itself of just go searching on that, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah. The Grand Canyon's fascinating subject. Yeah, yeah,
and you were touching on Yankee Stadium before that, and like I was in the Bronx yesterday doing another castle, an armory, 1912,
yeah,
1917. But meanwhile, Yankee Stadium was built in like 280 days. Like
yeah,
how the
yeah.
concrete cure? You know what I mean? Like and then I went down a rabbit hole once saying the old Yankee Stadium with the Bronx River right there, and they used to flood the Coliseum. Might have been the Coliseum, and that blew my mind.
Right. It's
You know what I mean?
Rome. It's
Like,
Rome. You're in Rome. Yeah.
yeah, and
But but
going to
but but I kind of already know the answer to some of these theories. So you are in Rome. I mean you are, and New York is actually Troy.
and it Empire State, the Empire
Right, right, right.
Boulevard, like come on, man, it's all
That was
there.
one of the first German. Sorry, the Empire State Building was one of the first German mooring stations for airships. The very
Yeah,
first ones. Yeah.
I went there. That people enjoyed just putting, hey, was the Empire State Building built in 400 days? Got people to come in because people don't know that number. You know what I mean? Like that they say, and people are like,
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
Once you hear it, you're like, hold on, come on,
Yeah, because
400
they don't
days.
like with the Yankee Stadium, it's probably one of the top three like ultimate kill switches for the Matrix because the Yankee Stadium, even if you ask like you, I mean, I suppose nowadays you could ask AI, could you calculate how many bricks there were? Could you calculate how many times horses would have come? Over how many years would you, if let's say, okay, 1,000 bricks arrive every day, how many years would it take? And it's something, it's probably going to be something ridiculous, like 600 years or something. Yeah, but it is that kind of scale. People don't realize that there are these kind of there's cheap architecture, these buildings that fall apart after 4 decades, and then there are literal structures that last for thousands of years. And Yankee Stadium is one of those structures that is going to be there for thousands of years, and it's probably already been there for thousands of years. And we just look at it as, oh, it's a stadium, it's a circular building with benches and toilets, whatever. But actually, that's an ancient building as opposed to all the buildings next to it, which are going to be gone in 50 years.
Well,
Yeah.
they knocked down the old Yankee Stadium, so I couldn't even go there and make a video. I'm so mad that I'm late to
But
waking
that's
up.
it. Okay,
I'm
but this is part of the waking up process. You have to realize that every time they come up with a narrative that they knocked it down and rebuilt it, they haven't done anything.
listen.
Can you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When they tell you that they've changed the town hall in whenever, St. Louis, wherever, yeah, we knocked down the town hall and we built a new one. It it's just renaming it. Nothing's changed. It hasn't moved. They've just come up with a story, but nothing has actually changed to the building. The building has not been changed and moved at all. That's just the narrative. Maybe they've knocked down one of the spires or something. You know, like, but literally, I've seen this so many times now that I always go through it like that now. I presume that yes, they're going to say it's a competition. This and this guy won the competition. Everyone tried to build one. Then you have like these obelisks in like Washington that supposedly never existed, but you have literally 10 different versions of different times of the year by 10 different artists over the period of 100 years, drawing the same structure from different vantage points at different seasons, you know. So you know it did exist. It was there at one point. All these people drew it. They weren't all working together to try to, you know, kind of re-enliven the idea of funding it. You know, that's not what they were doing. They saw it, they drew it before the age of photography, and that's why we have so many different references to certain structures. And I think and I think that almost all of this architecture can be explained if you understand sort of early or the kind of more advanced history of the world, how we had an energy grid, We all had our own means of transportation. Uh, Airships were fine to get from New York to Tokyo, from Tokyo to Berlin to London. It was fine. Airships were able to do all of those trips, even though they were so slow. People were still realistically using them for everything. Even in World War One, they were using them. So why are they using something that travels so slowly? Because they didn't have to go as far as we think we are going when we're traveling. So one building can bring into question, every part of your life, from where do you live, what's the shape of the realm, how long did people live in the past, did we all speak one language until this reset happened, because in the Bible it says like there was a tower built that was too close to heaven, and then suddenly we all in the on the Tower of Babel, we all kind of forgot how to speak. And I think that original language was maybe some kind of Paleo Hebrew symbolism, maybe hieroglyphics, and now suddenly we have to relearn how to communicate with each other. Yeah.
I just from visiting Pennsylvania, like I was at the Philadelphia City Hall, and they had the airships, and just seeing it on one of their pictures or painted, like
Yeah.
and him saying they didn't get in from the William Penn on the roof, but like going there. Are you familiar with Amish country? Amish
A,
people,
a little bit Amish people, yes, yeah.
they technically don't use electricity, like
Right.
simple phone. I want to go there because we went there. That was like the white trash Brooklyn vacation, shoot the Amish country, because Howard Johnson
Yeah.
had a pool as a kid in the 80s.
Yeah.
I want to go there, support the business, whatever business, because they do pies and stuff like that, and show them pictures of the Brooklyn Bridge and structures before power tools. I'm like, hey,
Mm.
can you guys do this? They're claiming how you guys operate with no power tools. Will you be able to and do this whole Amish country, because they live like how they said these things were built, and just go
Yeah,
through it?
yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
can they build this today? Would you guys be able to build this, and do a whole Amish country series on just showing them structures, and just, I don't know. This is
Yeah,
something
yeah,
new I came up with like the last couple of days, that I'm gonna go to people that worked with no power tools, and they're like, you
yeah.
can't build that. Like, just their reaction alone.
So they're probably like, probably laughing about it, but I think, I think the Amish, and also the, what do you also, you have Amish and you have the
Mennonites,
Mennonite, Morsons as well.
Muslim.
No, not Muslim. Sorry. Uh, what are they called? Morsons? No. Amish and the more
Oh, the in Utah, the Mormons, Mormons.
Mormons. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of references to more in the name. So I was thinking maybe maybe they were also sort of the original sort of settlers who sort of like arrived there and were like trading, almost like colonies from the original kind of European empires. Because I think they are bringing religion, but at the same time, they do have strange ritualistic sort of eccentricities that are very similar to the Normans during the Norman conquest. So they would start dancing at the solstices. They would dance. They would have these maypoles where they would dance around the maypole. They would build their own structures. They would be very kind of very sort of religious, no distractions from God, and I think that was this sort of the original Aryan people were like that. I don't think we were the ones with technology. I think we were the ones that were trying to connect with nature. We were the kind of druids, and then you would have the the Moors, the Black Moors would be coming into the city with all of their gold and silver, their jewels, and their technology, their astrolabes and airships. Because we still call like even shipping we call mooring stations, right? And then even metalwork we called it blacksmith because the man was always black who did that. The man with that knowledge, with that expertise. And I think that same with the stonemasons. It's Mason sounds a lot like Mawson, right? Son of the Moor. So maybe they were also the people that were building, constructing. And then at some point, obviously, you have the interbreeding. So then you would have the Black Moor and the White Moor, and then you'd have the Tartarian and the Indian, and because when Columbus arrived, supposedly, who I think he was a Portuguese spy, I found out working with the Spanish, he would keep telling the Spanish there's nothing here to find. Meanwhile, he is sort of like almost has been sort of sent away and exiled from Europe because during the 1400s, it fits in very well with discovering the New World. During the 1400s, you have all the Moors being kicked out of Europe, basically, and it went city from city. And there's some terrible stories of, especially in Italy, they still today have like Moor heads on the steps, which are these painted ceramic heads of these black men. And is anyone asking themselves why they're doing that? And then you have the original Sardinian flag, which had four Moor heads on it. So I think it was the whole world. I think the whole world started in the United States. Supposedly the same story as with Atlantis, that it just was flooded and removed. But what if they weren't flooded? What if these are still there, but they just don't show up on Google Earth, or these landmasses are still there, or we've just simply called them something else. Like instead of Mu, it's now called Australia. Instead of Atlantis, it's now called America. You see, and that would explain these incredible cities. When I mean, in the 1700s, there were each city like small cities would have only a few hundred people in them. But if you look at the maps, there is like industrialization, water irrigation. There's an infrastructure built for millions of people, and there's so
I,
many of these. I found many of these. Yeah.
and it's always they always rub it right in your face, like moment, like
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
so it's crazy how it's right in your face, um, and like the Atlantis, like the amount of and a small sample size because I'm just started, but the amount of Atlantis type structures built during the
Yeah.
Depression,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
monstrous, like we're about to starve to death, me and my family, but then they booked us
Mm.
to do this Atlantis structure in the middle of Brooklyn or Staten Island for no reason during a depression. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense, but the clues
So
are
so
there.
what happened to that narrative? Like is anyone going back and watching all the spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood, and what happened to all of that? All of those saloon doors and the cowboys and the sash and the Doc Holliday and Sundance Kid and the OK Corral. What happened to all of that history?
Yeah,
I never saw any airships in there. I never saw any like high rises or you know like
that's
nothing.
no, no, no.
It's
I
really bad. If you try to remember what was actually going on within your life, like when you were young, what kind of movies you were watching about the history of the United States. This was such an incredibly well-funded, well-organized brainwashing, for like literally people just surviving with their revolvers and their horses and their cowboy hats. Where did that come from? Like, and why are they called spaghetti westerns? Because the Italians wanted to further that narrative? I don't know. It's like they got all
yeah,
these great actors all in doing these like great train robberies, right? And fighting Indians. Never a single black. I think if there was a black man, he was a cowboy. He wasn't,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I mean, they really, really knew what they were. I mean, this is a very well organized fake kind of world that was constructed. And then you have obviously the world fairs, and for some reason everyone believed at the time that they were temporary, built within 2 years, made of stucco and pine wood, or you know but when you look at the pictures, it's not it you are you can't no one can build that today. And those buildings had water irrigation, electricity before the incandescent bulb was even on the market. I mean, Tesla was still inventing the damn thing in the 1800s, but they have thousands of these light bulbs lighting up the Palace of Electricity, and they just gave these names that these kind of these names like this new thing is happening. America is advanced, and then somehow they were able to tear those buildings down. I think some of the World Fairs became universities, and some of them were just completely removed, especially in St. Louis. It was all removed. Yeah.
I went to the one in Queens yesterday, actually,
Yeah.
and just like the fact that a crystal glass house burnt down, and like
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
the parish, like it's a crystal glass house. How did it burn down? Like, I mean, are we
Yeah. It
melting the
doesn't. Yeah.
glass?
It doesn't burn, right?
Crystal
Yeah.
and glass, and like the parachute jump, the Eiffel Tower, like, and like as I went down this rabbit hole, like people were like, oh, that was built in 1960s. I just shot my video in front of the Queen's World's Fair. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't saying it wasn't built in the 60s. I'm saying I was screaming so much about how they put it right in our face. Like, were we walking around with a hot dog in one hand and an ice cream scoop of ice cream in the
Mm.
other? Oh,
Yeah.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. The world, innovative technology, hot dog bun, ice cream cone, Belgian waffle. This is what as I'm looking at it, and they're putting these words in front of it on the AI search.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Innovative technology. Yes, I know putting a hot dog in a bun is great, right? But what were
It's
we doing
great.
before that? And like, we're Americans or
Yeah.
people eat it up. Oh, I love hot dogs, ice cream cones, Belgian
Yeah.
waffles are the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
It's a waffle made in Belgium. It's the same thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
waffle, and like
Yeah.
we eat it up, the distraction of a hamburger, and like, oh,
Yeah.
what about the flying cars? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I think the misdirection is it really works because they know what works, this what will distract you, and then they also rely on this kind of gang mentality, like you don't want your friends to think you're stupid or something. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
so you want to read about the building, but then it's a story about a criminal who lived there, or you want to read about the castle, and then suddenly it's oh, he was heartbroken because his wife left him, went back to Europe, so he just gave up building it or something. All these stories, they keep using these stories, these emotional stories that you can connect with to distract you, and then you never get to find out why the building looks like it's half underground, like some of these buildings, when they're half underground, that is not constructed that way. Nobody's going to build a building that is half underground, where the window literally meets, like half the window is underground, and if there is a flood, all the water goes right into the foundations because there's a window there for some reason. And the window is the same size as the one on top for the next floor. They're not going to suddenly build half-size windows. You it all fits geometrically. There's another floor and probably another one beneath that. And that building was there before there was some kind of mud flood, some kind of cataclysm. And for some reason they don't want to tell us. And I still can't really understand why they don't want to tell us. I guess it's because if we don't know the truth, then they can tell us that they built it or they constructed it and it belongs to them. And all of a sudden, they become our rulers simply because we haven't worked out the truth and we don't know the truth and we've accepted the lie. And I think that's why the food is so important because you want to be able to feed people, poison, I guess, at the end of the day. Like, I mean, you can't have someone die, straight away, but if you keep putting sugar in their diet, too many carbohydrates, from a young age, I think the food thing is definitely very troublesome for me. Like, we are not eating natural food. We've forgotten how to grow food. I think all the soldiers in World War II were taught how to set up an emergency vegetable garden. Yeah, it was very different education back then. We were able to survive after we left school. But I think now, yeah, you get these distractions, and they use every building has been used in some kind of movie or TV show. So then that's what they end up talking about. This was the TV show for this scene for the. And you never get to know what the build when the building was built or who built it or how all of these materials actually create this electromagnetic charge to help you stay healthy. Antibacterial copper piping. It wasn't poisonous. It was antibacterial, and maybe we just don't understand how these buildings were built because we didn't build the building, you know. And that's why we have to find out how they were built. Why use basalt with granite together on top of each other like a sandwich? Well, because it's negative, positive, anode, cathode. It actually charges the building. So the entire building becomes this kind of energy center where you live forever and you can pick up anything and you can and you have positive feelings, positive emotions, and you sleep really well. Yeah. And you don't have to go to the bathroom anymore because some of these ancient buildings don't have bathrooms. So I mean, why do they have domes? So they can get more sun. There's more surface area for the sun. So you can sit inside your sun dome, right? And you can get the most out of the electromagnetic, sun rays, because they knew more about science than we do now. Because we've been misinformed, I think. Where there's hardly anything that I was taught at school had any kind of this practical application. Whereas I think in the 1800s, people had a completely different curriculum. It was not controlled by some elite family, and I think most of these buildings were almost like angelically constructed. Because if you look at like Angkor Wat, there is no way to construct that. There is no way to cut those details out of rock. So I think that we're always looking for technology as the answer, but actually maybe the answer could be some higher creature that I always think that there were much more powerful entities back then. Some people call them like Nephilim, giants, builders, watchers, angels. I mean, we have different names for them because if we saw them, we probably wouldn't believe our eyes, or maybe we just don't have the eyesight to see them anyway. Because infrared, ultraviolet is only like 10% of many animals see much more than we do, like a much bigger spectrum. Buildings. When they say the Library of Alexandria, all the buildings inside were destroyed, I think the actual library wasn't the books inside, it was the building itself, the symbolism, the geometry of the building. I think the buildings themselves are actually the information, not the books housed within the building. And I think that's why if you really study the architecture of a big city like New York, which is the original Troy, I think that yeah, you will learn something that goes back to your ancestors. It's going to go back millennia. I think that information. And I think that's why even the most evil person is not going to destroy that because they're going to know that that's if we do forget everything and there's no one holding this information, like there's no like Dominican church which held everything, or there's no like Bible being written and rewritten and kept throughout many centuries. I think we would just forget that we're human and we would end up just like animals again, you know?
I before you were talking about like they always have like a story. I always say
Mhm.
pulling on the heartstrings, like Statue of Liberty gave it to us
Yeah.
for slavery. Now black people aren't going to question it. Oh, the Brooklyn Bridge built by a woman in the 1880s. In the
Yeah.
1980s, they had horrible women's rights, let alone the 1880s. So now
Right, right, right.
women question it. You know what I mean? And like I hate
Yeah.
like going against that because I love women. I don't, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to, I don't want to disrespect
Yeah.
them. You know what I mean? Like
It's gaslighting you. Yeah. So you can't say, oh, these angels were women or these angels were men or, yeah. Or you can't say, oh, this building was probably not constructed by the Italians and it's an Italian neighborhood, so they're angry.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm like, I'm part Italian. I could say it. But like,
yeah.
and like the simplest, littlest thing, like just on TikTok, hey, I'm Big T's in Europe. Wow, they're using real chicken here. This McDonald's tastes different. How many of those videos have you, as an American? I like to see what they're eating overseas, and that the common thing is like, wow, this tastes different than the McDonald's at home. Like, how is that not a red flag in people's minds as they're
Yeah,
watching? You
yeah.
don't need to hear me or you talk. Like, hold on, why do I keep watching these McDonald's videos in Europe and it's different? It's a
Yeah.
different menu, different animals, less antibiotic, or maybe a little less than what they're doing over here with the red dyes and everything else in America. And when you said going back to the
Mm.
food, what they're feeding us.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the Irish, for example, with their cuisine and their style and their sort of architectural background in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, I don't, I think that there is an argument to be made that the Irish are actually the original Egyptians, and because they have the same haplogroup, the same genetics. So I think the Irish are actually the original Egyptians, and I don't think they all came from Ireland. I think you're in Egypt. That's why everyone's Irish, because the Irish are the real Hebrews. Yeah, they are actually from that lineage. They're the red-haired giants. They are the Hebrews. So you only get red hair when you have a black ancestry. That's how that works. Yeah, so that's just melanin in your hair and your skin. That's why you get freckles. It's the remains of that ancestral bloodline. So the Irish are in New York because that is the original biblical Egypt. And then the Italians also have this large number, this large populace in the same area because they are the Romans that arrived there. Now, are they the original Romans? And then modern day European Italy is a much smaller version of that. So that's the colony. So you have the Irish colony, which is when Brutus, the Trojan general at the fall of Troy, he left, he escaped after the fall of Troy, he left. He ended up in the UK. So the name Britain comes from Brutus, the Trojan general. So all of this you can look up. This is all on Google. So he arrives, calls the capital. The original capital name, by the way, was a Viking named Yordik or York. So York was the original capital of Britain. Now, York backwards is Troy, because after this vowel shift where we stopped using Hebrew and Latin, we actually have the T and the Y became sort of interchangeable, right? Because we added more letters. Same as the J. The J it didn't exist. Yeah. So they took that and they inverted the word from Troy to York, because he came from Troy. So New York is actually the original Troy, and the old capital London, which was once York or York, is actually the new Troy, because that's where the one of the princes of Troy escaped to, one of the last princes that didn't die at the fall of Troy. This is the story of Agamemnon. You can see there's a lot of references in the Brad Pitt film, but the Brad Pitt film kind of puts a lot of heroes together that didn't exist at the same time, like Hercules and yeah, Hector. They didn't exist at the same time. But yeah, I mean the idea of the original kind of name still being hidden within the new name, just by putting the letters back to front. And you'll find that in many places, in like Memphis, for example. Like I think the story is that they wanted to call it Memphis because it looked like Egypt. I don't know, but yeah, calling it Memphis is actually the real one, and that's the real Egypt. So you have the references with a lot of the people that know about it will make jokes about it. Like Elon Musk has referenced it a lot. He said it's an important part of the world to do certain types of science. And yeah, Jordan Peterson has referenced it. A lot of them know, but they're not allowed to tell you. It's a secret that they have been told. They haven't worked it out themselves. Like if you do your own research, you could probably work it out yourself. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that makes these cities so important, so powerful. So you don't have Italians immigrating into America. They were already there. They speak Italian for a reason. You don't have Spanish arriving and conquering Mexico. No, that's the original Spanish. That's where the Muslims built the first universities. That's where Tariq ibn Ziyad invaded Spain to be a colony. Yeah. So when you find like Alhambra Palace, one of the most beautiful Moorish palaces, is in Spain. Well, it's in Spain because Spain is part of Africa. Spain is there's no the idea of Europe and Africa. two continents that are connected to each other, that you can redraw that line every 10 years if you want. You can, oh, today Portugal's part of Africa. There's no distance there. There's like a little, a, like a very small uh, waterway maybe in between. Like I mean, we have no idea how they constructed all of this land. They could have built it up around lighthouses because there's lighthouses all over the place, even where they don't strategically have to be. So they could have manifested all of that land. They could have been experts at manipulating water. People still don't even know how the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were made. Yeah, like we don't really understand water that well. We sort of know that it flows from east to west in the east, and then it kind of goes anti-clockwise in the west. And we sort of look at the stars and we kind of understand what's going on. But if the sun and moon are the same size, and that's the symbolism that all these gods in Helsinki and Eastern European train stations always have these gods holding these bowls, and it's like, yeah, that's the sun and the moon are the same size. They're always the same size. They've been the same size for thousands of years. And that's how they saw the world. But somehow we can't look at the world in the way that it appears, which is the only way that matters, really. If you think about it, we have to prescribe to these religions where we are on a heliocentric model flying through space, nowhere to go, no God, nobody watching us, you know. But that also reflects badly on the human body because the human body is the model for every building. You know, have
I
you have you started to work
I'm
that
sorry.
out? Yeah,
Yeah. No,
that's true.
I was going back. I The question I wanted to ask as an Irish person,
Yeah,
I always like jokingly throughout my life, you heard people, oh, black Irish, there was
yeah.
black slaves first. Irish need not apply. And I'm like, why? What like, and then I would never bring that up in an argument about whatever history was told, but I always heard this and people joke about it, like, and it's
Yeah.
like, does that have anything that has to be directed to the Moors and everything else, right? Like everything you were
It
saying
is
is
absolutely, yes. I can show you some interesting information about the Irish, what they looked like a couple of hundred years ago. Um, but the problem is, racism is it's kind of it's the drug of the masses because we've been fed this for a long time. Like a lot of like people say that the population of Ireland should be three times what it is. So a lot of these people have maybe even been feeding this kind of Irish drinking culture to sort of get people so drunk that they're just having babies and the babies are being taken away. There's some terrible things that happened in like the 1800s. People just being given free alcohol. There's stories of that. Then you have these large palaces that the Moors left behind after this Reconquista, supposed Reconquista, where they just turned them into insane asylums. And I think that's where a lot of this breeding was going on, just like popping out children to repopulate areas that they didn't want to be black anymore or that they conquered. And I think they put the Moors against maybe the Algonquin Indians, maybe the Seminoles were put kind of almost like had this maybe centuries long kind of um, uh, uh, wars and like negative history, where there was no chance of unification. And I think the same thing happened in India with the British government. Like they managed to create a dividing line between Pakistan and India, and all of a sudden the whole empire of the Mughals was kind of fighting itself. And you see that with the North and South, with the Civil War. And that also happened in Germany, like East and West Germany. You've got the DDR, right, the the British American sector, the Russian sector, and even Berlin. They didn't just divide the country; they also divided the city, the main city, which has one side was dragon symbolism, the other side was this large bear symbolism, and they even cut through entire bridges and stuff just to kind of make a point that there was a wall. If you cross, you get shot, kind of thing. And I think in some countries that goes on forever. That goes on that's going to go on for many generations. That kind of difference between East and West. And I think that was the tactic with America, with the Native Americans, to first of all recategorize them as Moors, then recategorize them as natives, then some were Plains Indians, some were called Aboriginals, you know, and then you have the N word, and then you have the slave word, right? So slowly everybody forgets who they were, and I think that's how an empire is conquered, almost always from within, right? If you start separating the Roman people from the Etruscans or the Carthaginians or the German tribes, yeah, and then they end up fighting each other, and that's the only way to conquer any empire like that, because America was far more sophisticated than Europe. Came in with their high frequency silk, and they were washing their hands and eating with cutlery, and people thought these are aliens that come from another planet, yeah, because they couldn't calibrate that. Using water to wash. How do you get the water into your house? You know? Oh, it's not magic. It just, we build a few, we construct water irrigation pumps, natural springs. Every street corner, by the end of the 8th century, every street corner had pumps for water, so people could collect water without going to the river. That just didn't exist in Europe until the Moors arrived in 711 AD. Yeah, and the Moors came from America. That was their first great empire. And I think that's why and I think it's hidden in a lot of things. Like 7-Eleven is called 7-Eleven, not because it's 11 hours, 7 days, but because 7-Eleven was when the Moors from the United States arrived. So I think there's still Moors, like noble elite families, that are ruling the world today. And I think you'd be surprised to find out that the Germanic Moorish, the Black Moors in Germany, who I've traced very well, the Saxe Coburg they were called, and the Habsburg Moor. All of those still have black men as the sculptures in the above the fountains on the castles. There are still elephants which came from Africa on all the castles, all the German castles, and Germany has more castles than any other country, I think. So you have like Moorish castles. They're still called names like Saint Maurice, Moritzburg. All the names are still there, just like you know, um, in the United States, you still have like Moore Street, Elephant Street, Castle Street, the whole concept of a castle, of a moat, of a river, of having a star fort. All of these come from black Dutch and Deutsch families, because Germany is not the name of Germany for German people. You understand? No German person says Germany when they're in their country. It's called Deutschland. So if you're Dutch, it's called Dutchland. So Austria was also part of Germany. All of these countries were one country, and so you've got the European Moorish Empire, the Moors, and then the American Moors, the natives, right? Who were also these very high frequency people that understood things, that built airships, that constructed these star castles all over the world. You can find them in Taiwan, China, Japan, the United States. You can find star forts everywhere. Uh,
Australia.
Australia, right, Australia. So Australia, another ancient land that was never called Australia, or maybe was called Australis, because that does come up on some old maps, like the Frau Moran map. But the word more is even in English, because if you want more of something, or you want, do you know what I mean? Like we use the word more all the time. We say, "Oh, more food, more. I want to be more. I want to make more of myself." Like, can you see what I mean? It's in
Yeah.
there. This is an ancient language. It's not some new language. These are all ancient tongues that we're speaking. These are all magical. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I think the true world is so far from reality that it almost seems like a science fiction novel. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it's also interesting to me as someone that it's new to, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's interesting and cool and talking to someone like you and learning, and even going to Nashville, and like the amount of people, like you have to go to Memphis, and like you just bringing up
Yeah.
Memphis, like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Memphis,
Yeah.
St. Louis, Detroit, and that all runs along the Mississippi, and is all like Egyptian stuff there in the
That's
middle of the
crazy.
country per
Yeah.
se, or south. And like I'm trying to hit all those. I'm trying to get to all these places. I
Yeah.
need to check them out.
It's very exciting to see you do that. Yeah. So how far is that from you, like St. Louis? Is that quite, you have to travel quite far?
Yeah, all within plane. It's a plane ride. Like I thought
No.
Pittsburgh was closer. Pittsburgh was 7 hours by car. I'm like, I can't. That's too much driving. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so listen, I'm looking for the cheapest way right now, and like that's why I chose Nashville. Well, I chose the good weather in Nashville over Detroit, but I'm choosing the cheapest way right now just to get to these places. And I don't mind the finance game of just whatever's the cheapest one. Because
Yeah.
you got to be smart about traveling. When you're just
Yeah.
assuming
Yeah.
you're gonna make something of it. Like.
Yeah. You have to plan it out. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Yeah.
But I have something coming up Monday, and I want to go back to Prague. Like oh, the old little thing they plan. Oh, Hitler loved the architecture so much. This is the only place he didn't destroy or something. Remember that
Yeah. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
say that over here at school. It was like then when I visited it, I'm like, just a weird thing to say. Like, oh no, I like this country's architect. Everywhere else, we're gonna destroy during the war.
Yeah, yeah, no. No, I mean there's still massive cathedrals, like some of the biggest cathedrals in like Köln. And when you look at like the after the bombing, for some reason the cathedral hasn't been touched, you know? It does feel like a fake narrative where they pretend that it's a world war, but it's just their opportunity to flatten the land and take over, you know? Because
Yeah.
when there's no one left to claim the land, I think it's always about land. I think every world war was about getting rid of an entire generation of active, honorable men. If you get rid of those men, then you're left with the weaklings and you know, the drunks and and hopefully a lower frequency. And you just have to look after your own lineage. Try to have a few caveat families so you don't get too many Habsburg jaws where people can't eat anymore. But you just interbreed and you just keep going, and everybody else gets lower frequency because you use those world wars to kill all the heroes. And as horrible as that sounds, I think that was the plan. I think it was the monarchy wanted to, because all of this happened after the revolutions. You know, none of this was happening until the revolutions. That's when we had World War after World War, because they realized that now, it they have no excuse to feel elitist or to feel like they are the elites or the superior ruling powers, because we can tear down their castles, and like what happened in France with Mary Antoinette, they can decapitate them on the street, right? And I think all those people were black. All the ruling elites were black. I think every single European lineage is black. They then have to get fake people as like puppets to stand in front and pretend to be the white Caucasians that look just like you do. But actually behind the scenes are the true rulers. And I think they rule from small countries like Haiti or Liberia, and then they come into their own castles now and again and pretend to be like teachers or famous actors usually. I think all the actors in Hollywood are actually these elites, because most of them can't even act, and they have so much surgery, they don't even look human. But a lot of them are these elites. You won't get any normal person, like a normal person, like a farmer or somebody like that, becoming famous for any period of time. They're all elites. If you look at every family line, like the like Garnier, Jennifer Garnier, I found out Gardino was one of the first 10 presidents. I found out that those were all deleted from history, by the way. The Warburgs, they were the banking family. So you had a Warburg in the German bank, funding the Nazi army, and you had another Warburg in Britain, in the city of London. So you had two different Wahlbergs, and then you get Mark Wahlberg constantly doing these like shows talking about the veterans and stuff, and I mean, most 99% of people don't have any idea what a Wahlberg family lineage is, but I've looked into all the German lineages, and and that is the banking family. Those were working for the Rothschilds. Have you looked into the Rothschilds much? You'll see a lot of Rothschilds imagery in the old Moorish cities like New York. I think you'll find a lot of those. Yeah.
Yeah, well, just from doing the Federal Reserve, just that, like, I don't know, just the building itself in New York, the one in New York, like the whole system itself. When you start digging, it's like, because a lot of people are like, no, it's the government, they control our money. Like, no, they work with the government. You know what I mean? Like the Federal
Yeah.
Reserve and the
Yeah.
Rothschild started that, and like even the building itself, the safes are so big that they had to
Yeah.
put the gold on the bedrock and build around it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
story is comical, let alone the whole system. And people still go along with it and trust that name. I don't know. It's always a
No,
red flag for me.
there must be New York under the street. There must be another city. There has to be because all of that gold melted down into the foundations of Troy. So if you look at the conquest of Troy, like Homer's Iliad is basically the first book you should read if you want to know what's underneath the streets of New York. That is an insane thing to say, right? But Homer's Iliad is not 1,000 years ago or 2,000, 3,000 years ago, because they added 1,000 years onto our timeline. So it's actually probably just a few hundred years ago. Yeah, I mean, we are now in around, I don't know what year it would be for us. It would be like because 300 years were added on by Pope Gregory, and another 1,000 years were added on after that by the Jesuits. So we're it's around 7 AD, the actual time since Jesus was born. Now, 2026, if it was 2026, it would be Armageddon because we only have 6,000 years since the beginning to the end, right? Since the beginning of the world, and then Jesus was born. Then the last accurate Bible was printed in like maybe 1815, 1820. So it's 20. If it was actually 2026, it would be exactly 6,000 years since the beginning. Yeah. So we would be after the millennial reign, but we're not there yet. Yeah.
So that's why
So
Y2K, sorry, in 2000 was so important, as something might have happened
very
because that was the
important.
end of the
Yeah.
6,000 years reign.
Yeah. But I mean, all of that is manufactured a prophecy. Like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, they name their children after that prophecy because they're trying to bring that about. But it's we're nowhere near there yet. So, but it's good that like people understand that the letter J is not a one. So even buildings in New York are old enough. They're actually the oldest buildings. So we should look at like old photos, old sketchbooks, old illustrations of those buildings. Like there was a lot of architectural magazines, like Munzie's. Have you heard of that one? The old New York
Yeah.
architectural journals. They're incredible. If you can get any original ones of those, that's going to be important later on. Right now, people don't understand why it's important, but later on, you get old postcards of buildings, the city. Those ones are going to be worth a lot of money because they're going to realize they have to hide that soon. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just I hear so much, I learn so much, I meet interesting people like you, and the comment section so supportive, and like
Yeah.
people like, oh, why don't you do this, do that? I'm like, listen,
Yeah.
if we're on TikTok or Instagram and watching a video, we don't understand it, we all go right to the comment section. So like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
can't
The
we go to the
comments are great
comment
sometimes.
section
Yeah.
right here on one of your videos, one of my videos? Like, hold on, I'm trying to
Mm.
follow what they're saying. Let me go to the comment section to see what they're talking about. Like, if it's a cooking video, oh, the comment section's right. But if it's our video, oh no, that doesn't make sense. Like, hold on, it works every
Yeah.
other time, but when it's us, it doesn't work. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
Do you understand that there are people who are paid to like almost waste your time and to, like
it,
there's paid opposition, especially when you start going into this very important topic like of the architecture and the history. Yeah.
that's, people say that when I'm interviewing someone in the street, like, be careful out there. That person definitely, they're sending people to mess with you. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah,
that,
yeah.
and I'm responding, I'm laughing, but you never know. And it's I
Yeah.
I I'm
I mean,
always
I
I always
think
get
it's
my
the
guard up.
greatest sign that you're getting someone. It's the biggest compliment you can have is people actually getting together, talking about you, trying to find out how they can kind of, distract you because there's a yin and yang. There's a balance to everything in this world. So then there's going to be somebody who's going to give you the ultimate clue for the next stage, the next step. But no, what you're doing is incredible. I'm so glad that you're doing that because there hasn't been anyone doing that. And New New York is so important. Like it's such an ancient part of human history that it's just good to know something no one else knows. Do you like that feeling as well? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love everything I'm doing. I'm like
yeah,
that
yeah,
feeling, learning for once in my life, not listening.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it was a blessing that I never opened a book. I graduated early. How do you graduate early not opening a book? You know what I
because
mean?
you
Like,
weren't brainwashed. You weren't brainwashed.
that's what I try to tell people. Like people think that's an admission of a lack of education. Like no, that means I'm
uh,
a free thinker. I'm
yeah, yeah.
opening my book today. You know what I mean? The last couple of years, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Because I think a lot of your brain hasn't connected. Your neurological pathways have not connected in your 30s. For me, they hadn't. I didn't really understand that I have to be an expert on like dietary things. I have to be an expert on health, not because I want to be a doctor, but because I am a human and I have a body to look after. Do you know what I mean? So like when you get to your 40s, and I think also maybe getting married, having kids is also like important because that it kind of grounds you a little bit, and then God will bless you a lot to give you all the tools that you need to be a husband, father, brother. You know what I mean? Like yeah, because you're kind of like being blessed as long as you don't like sell your soul or do something terrible that destroys your conscience. I think you will be blessed. I think God will just give you as much as you think you can take because this is free. The best things in life are free, like
Yeah.
this information, the knowledge. Imagine you then turn around and don't go to the middle of the labyrinth, or you don't go through the gates at the end and you don't find out what it's really all about, that it's all this illusion and that the only thing to fear is fear and everything around you is just a distraction. I don't think you can do that. You can't stop. You can't just say, no, I'm going to give up now, because it's human nature. It kind of goes against human nature. And I think the people who built those buildings started off studying the buildings, looking at the buildings with no middleman, no one giving you some, misdirection. Just, you and the building and the frequency, the numerology, the symbology, and I think that changes your brain in the end. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward like the people like, oh, some people are like he's grifting. I'm like, you think I started doing this with a plan?
Yeah, there was a plan.
Like this as a stand-up comedian, this is me waving the white flag, telling my girl, I'm like, I'm gonna do what I love. And they'll
Yeah,
find me eventually.
I can no longer understand people that have anything negative to say about someone having ideas and theories and being creative.
And
And I
people
think it's to do with I already gave up the right to be creative. I gave up the right to be free, Maybe it's something like that. Maybe they've, already kind of it's already kind of too late for them. Because at a certain age as well, some people are no longer able to accept new ideas.
yeah.
It's sad, but it's the life cycle of everyone. But I hope that doesn't never happens to me. I hope I'm always gonna be like, oh, I will look into Dogman, and yes, I will look into
But
Flying Lions.
I saw them both on buildings. Come on, man. I saw them both.
Why did they put the same one on this building that they did back in China and in Rome and in
Yeah.
Germany and in Prague,
Well, well, listen, man. The good energy and how I always am. I have multiple logos and merch, and I give it out. And I always said I'm some
Yeah.
shithead. I'm some shithead from Rockaway, and people want my stuff. You know what I mean? And now
Yeah.
people want to make it make sense. I'm giving it out. I don't care. And if people
Yeah.
want it
Yeah.
more, I can't do that forever. The first round, I want to give. I like to give. You know what I mean? I want to go on the road,
Yeah.
pull up and
Yeah.
meet me. People want to meet me. I'm gonna give you my time and my energy, like whatever it is. I'm gonna
Yeah.
give back. And if I get to travel, go to Utah, this place, the Great Wall of China, wherever, it's just
Yeah.
part of what I guess I was doing. I have no plan. I'm just going, Charles. You know, I just
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I need to
Yeah,
slow down and do
nobody
more
nobody on
research.
earth knows where the energy comes from, by the way. It doesn't come from how much you eat or how much you exercise. It doesn't all of those thoughts and all of that energy is external. It's around your head, not it doesn't come from inside. Inside is the intuition and the problem solving and the creativity. I think all of that energy comes from outside. But yeah, if you're out in that building, in that place, you're getting energy from the ground as well. You're getting, uh, I know we're like disconnected from the ground physically with shoes and stuff, which we weren't in the past. But hey, do some grounding in all of these locations, and you'll realize why those buildings are there. You know,
I love
it's not a
touching.
coincidence. Yeah.
I always try to touch them and feel like
Touch the
it's.
building, stand in the archway, and it's really empowering. Like I stood in this really old, like Moorish temple. I didn't want to leave the archway. And people were looking at me like, why don't you go in the building or out the building? I says, no, no, no. I know what this is. This is a large magnet, and this is giving me some real energy, and I'm getting recalibrated because we are water, you see. So we are constantly trying to recalibrate. These people worship water, the Moors. They worshipped these spirals. This Fibonacci sequence doesn't come from Fibonacci. He just found out what these people were doing, these ancient empires. And yeah, I think it's connected to everything, to communicating, to levitation, to telepathy. Those things all exist. Those are all real things. And yeah, I think they could talk to animals. Do you know the Bible very well? Have you read the Bible when you were young?
Not,
Uh,
not very well, but I know some things. I'll be
It
honest with
is
you.
it is crazy some of the stories in there, how they connect with things. Yeah.
Oh well,
Like,
just from
yeah.
learning this from the comment section in the beginning, I was like,
Yeah.
I was telling my friend, I'm like, it seems like I'm connecting with black people and housewives telling me about Satan season, and like just from reading the comments and seeing the person's
Yeah. Yeah.
avatar,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like I'm just going answering comments and just seeing who from the picture. I'm like, wow, it's a funny demographic to me of me yelling at a building, but in hindsight, it's the Moors, it's
Yeah.
just religious women telling me of excerpts of the Bible of it's short season, it's Satan
Yeah.
season, and at first it's when you're first starting and you're learning, you're thinking like, what? I don't know. It was a lot at first. Like, what are they talking about? But now, a couple months in, you're like, oh, this is all making sense. The Bible's making sense. The
Yeah. Yeah.
flood, the wood in Florida, everything you're saying, it makes it. It
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
adding up. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you do start to want to look at the Bible academically, but what happens later is you start looking at it spiritually as well. Then you start to look at the snake as being not just Satan, but also being venom. And then you look at the lamb as being not just Jesus, but also the blood of the lamb is where anti-venom is derived even today. And these things happen over and over again. This mind-blowing connection between a book that somehow is physical and mundane in its very simple advice on, oh, don't kill other people, or don't eat pork. It's really bad for you. Like slowly, it's giving you very simple advice. Like if you are not like faithful to your wife, it cause problems. Okay, fine. Thanks. I don't really need that information, but thank you. Or cleanliness is next to godliness. Okay, I should wash my hands. So, but it also works on a spiritual level, and then it works on an esoteric level. And I shouldn't put the esoteric above the spiritual, but when you realize it works on an esoteric level, and that even if you don't believe in God, you're still gonna I think people still read the Bible just for historical reference, and esoterically the symbolism, it all comes from the Bible. And yeah, I mean, even the way they build arches with a keystone, that symbolism also is from the Bible. It's Heaven's Gate, that was removed during the flood. And yeah, every building you can tell who built it just by the symbolism, and they can't lie to you. Like in Asia, they like to say everything was built by the Japanese, but they have Shinto shrines. They don't have Christian shrines. So a Christian temple and Christian arches outside a Christian massive, Greek gods, like that's not Japanese. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
your narrative is wrong. That's not some Japanese colonialism that only lasted for like 30 years anyway. So, yeah, so it's everywhere. It's not just America. It's literally everywhere I go. There's these lies, and you see these fences, and you look through the fence, and you realize the fence was a viewfinder for the palace behind, and now you know the dome was removed. Now you know there's another wing that was also taken down. That's not what the building looked like. So all those construction photos are fake. because they didn't realize the esoteric side of why every gate is different outside every palace, because the gate is an elaborate geometrical celebration of the building behind. Yeah, because it's electromagnetic, and it just goes on and on. I mean, I find out new things all the time. As much time as you put in, that's how much power you're going to get out of it, and it's pretty cool. But just being able to talk to you is absolutely amazing.
Hey,
Because your
listen,
energy goes through the matrix, man.
I appreciate it. And I was just trying to be a student for a second and be a good student for the first time and listen to someone who knows so much and is a pleasure to
Yeah.
talk to and a pleasure to,
Awesome.
yeah. Consider you a friend online through this. Besides learning, I'm meeting cool, awesome people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, it's very cool to get to know, people, and because it's
different
also going
kinds
to
of people
motivate
too.
us to do more as well, to kind of work harder, and it's very cool. Like I think this is the purpose for these structures, to celebrate humanity, and because they're all the human body. I mean, I'd like to chat with you again in the future, maybe about like frequency and color and the connection between sound and the human body, and because each book of the Bible used to connect to a frequency, um, and the connections there are just mind blowing, insane. Like, yeah.
Sorry, I was waiting. I know I heard the bing. I didn't know if that was my phone or not.
No, that's me. That's behind me. I
I
forgot to
had the
turn
cleaning,
the.
I had the cleaning lady come in. I'm like, I hope she's not banging on the door. But I
Okay.
would love to chat anytime you
Yeah.
want. I
Okay.
appreciate it. I appreciate the support online. I appreciate you lining this up with the time differences. I appreciate you in general
Yeah.
and your content and the AI stuff you're doing now. Just keep up the great work, brother. Thank you so much. And
Cool. Yeah.
good energy, right? You said give it back, we'll get it back. We give
Yeah.
it. That's why we're here, you know?
We share it, it becomes bigger.
Yep. All right, brother.
Cool.
Listen, you have a great evening or a great rest of the day, and stay tuned. I'm gonna make some references to you in my videos when I hit Memphis and these other spots. I appreciate all the knowledge
Cool.
today. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Today,
Okay.
we unravel
See you.
the
Bye.
symbolism and facades of New York City. Using our lens, we uncover the hidden truths in these grand designs.